clear my plans. That's what I'm doing tonight. You know what day it is. Ready to learn, laugh, love.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages? My name is Pastor Jason Jones. Well, actually, my name is Jason Jones, and I'm the lead pastor of Zion Church Woodbridge. And welcome back to Dive on Tuesday nights. Now, for those of you who are new here, if you don't know what this is, Dive is our opportunity where we dive deeper into the word, deeper into the conversations that we have in our Sunday messages so that we can get greater understanding and learn how to live out God's truth. So I'm so glad you're here. Do me a favor, if you're watching on Facebook, if you're watching on zionwoodbridge.com, like the video, share it out to your friends, your family, your aunties and them, your cousins and them. Everybody, let them know the dive is live and we have a special experience for you tonight. But before I do that, before I say anything else, I want to welcome my partner, my dog, my brother. That's my man. That's my guy, Pastor Shimon Smalls. Pastor Smalls, what's up, bro? How you doing, man?
I am doing well, bro. It is good to be back with you, and it is definitely good to be back with our family and all of our guests who tuned in. Again, welcome. Just keep it locked because we got a lot in store for you. We had an exciting service this past week that I can't wait to delve into. So I'm gonna kick it back to you, bro.
Yeah. We had a special experience this past Sunday. Shout out to our Extreme Kids Children's Ministry and our Zion Church Family Ministry for putting together, I think, probably our first combined global virtual experience. And
Nice.
it was crazy. They had the kids doing worship. We had like skits and a word, we had a word, we had a conversation, there was all kinds of crazy stuff. If you didn't get a chance to check it, go to our Facebook page, go to Zion Woodbridge on Facebook. The video from Sunday is there. You can watch the service in its entirety. Make sure you catch that. It is something, I'm telling you, and it's something that the whole family can get something out of. So from no matter what age you are, from the little ones to the older ones, I'm telling you, there's some great stuff in there. So with that said, we're gonna jump into taking a quick look back at this past week's service. So with no further ado, y'all, I'm gonna kick it to our first clip. We're gonna come back and talk a little bit about it. We'll see you in a second.
The 5K race. That's
Wait.
not what we're talking about in commitment.
Wait, then what's it about?
You know what? For all you guys who are first times here, or for those who may have forgotten, every week we talk about commitment, and we're talking about different ways that we can grow our relationship with God. So we talked about hearing from God.
Okay, yeah, so that's like when I go to church or I do my devotionals
Exactly.
throughout the week. Okay.
Then
right.
we talked about praying to God.
Oh, we came up with the acronym. So P stands for the praise payer,
Boom.
R for repent,
Boom.
A for ask, and then Y for yield. Okay.
Now we're cooking. And then last week we talked about talking about God.
Oh, so that's like telling my friends about God and then telling other people my story.
Exactly.
Okay.
So this week we're going to talk about living for God.
Okay, living for God. Living for God. Oh, wait. Then where'd I get 5K from?
Well, maybe if you think about it, when you practice for a race like a 5K,
Okay.
you make a plan, you put it into practice, right? And then you commit to that race. And that's the same way we grow our relationship with God. We make a plan, we put it into practice, and then we commit to God.
Ah, that's where I get it from, Mr. Jason. I really appreciate
Mm. Practice living for God. Practice living for God. Hey, if you're watching, type that in the chat. That's such a great reminder, and I can't wait to get into to talk about this a little more. Practice living for God. Pastor Shimon,
Yes, sir.
what commitments or disciplines are the hardest ones for you? And tell the people something that you can put in place to help build up the necessary discipline.
Sure thing. So one word, fasting. I feel like that's a curse word every time I hear it. But the Bible tells us, and Jesus said it specifically in Matthew, when you fast, not if you fast, not maybe you should, not this is the best practice, when you fast. So it just lets me know that I need to be in the posture that I need to turn my plate down and search God, whether it be for direction for my family, whether it be direction for myself, whether it be to intercede on somebody else's behalf, because not all the time do I need to be turning down my plate solely for me and mine, but it's also an opportunity to intercede for other people. Because sometimes it takes that person who's spiritual, like the Bible tells us, you who are spiritual, restore such a one. So for me, I know that turning down my plate is one of those disciplines that's always hard initially. Just the thought of it just makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. But when I get into it and at the end of it, like God just continues to move in phenomenal ways. Like I'm able to hear him clear. I'm able to see him clear. I remember one time that, I turned my plate down because we were looking at moving, much like what you might be thinking about, Pastor Jay. And for me, I was at the place where I was just like, we're comfortable where we are. Like, God forbid something happened, we'll be able to make ends meet here. But what I had to do was really seek God out because I felt and heard move, but I didn't want it to be housing. Like it could have been, hey, I need you to move employment wise, or hey, I need you to move closer to someone. And so for me, turning down my plate, God was able to show me, hey, if I open up this door for you to move, just know that it's for something better. And he did open up that door for us. We actually moved and we were able to create our first investment property. So for me, fasting has become one of the one things that is hardest, but one of the best things that happens in life. And then I would say the way that I keep that discipline in place is accountability. Like it's sitting down and really sharing. Like I don't mind making a fool of myself and saying, hey, like I need to start fasting because folks are going to ask that question. Like they're going to hold you accountable. Like you said you were going to do it. Where are you with it? So for me, it's having that accountability, talking to my bros like you, Pastor Jay, talking to guys that I'm close and connected with to say, hey, this is what I plan on doing. I need you to help me stay strong in this. So what about you, bro? What you think, Pastor Jay?
Yeah, it's funny that, this idea of disciplines. There's a book that I remember Pastor James Marshall recommended years ago. And I actually ended up teaching a class on it as part of our Thomas J. Simmons Institute, a while back. And it's a book called A Celebration of Discipline by a pastor by the name of Richard Foster. And basically, the disciplines are practices that help us get closer to God. It's really that simple. Right. And they're divided into three groups: inward, outward, corporate. The meditation, prayer, fasting, study, simplicity, solitude, submission, service, confession, worship, guidance, and celebration.
Break it down.
And these disciplines, when you practice them, they all, as Dr. Foster puts it, gives God access to our lives, right? And when I think about this, what commitments or disciplines are hardest for me? Man, simplicity and solitude are hard for me, and I'll say particularly, I'll say solitude. Solitude is hard for me. Like even as someone that loves peace and quiet, I'm so busy and I'm so used to doing stuff. It's hard for me to pause and say, God, let me wait to hear from you before I do, before I make a move. And it's hard, man, because I'm so used to being results driven and thinking that things happen because my will is strong, or because I work hard, or because I study real hard, or whatever it is. Like, yeah, but there are times when we gotta exercise this solitude to really be still and be quiet before God. And one of the greatest ways to do that is I think fasting is a great great sort of companion to that discipline. But ultimately, just the idea of just being quiet, like don't listen to anything, don't watch anything. Just give God some time, sit with his word, And even if you're not actively reading the word, sitting quietly in a contemplative, you know, posture before him to give him a chance to download to you. Because so often when we approach God, it's always about us getting God know our concerns. We're giving our petitions and all that, right? But what about when God's got stuff he wants to say to us? You know, and I think sometimes, and I can say this has been true in my life. I don't know if anybody else, this is you, let us know in the chat. Sometimes life is too loud for you to hear God clearly.
Mm.
And I don't know about y'all. I've made missteps because I was too busy serving God or too busy moving in what I thought God was telling me to do to actually hear him well. Right. So what is something I could put in place to build the necessary discipline? For me, the greatest realization, and this is something I learned from my pastor years ago, as well as other leaders and executives. It's just the power of your calendar. Um, I have time in my so I'm getting better. I'm getting better, y'all. I'm getting better. I have time in my calendar on a daily basis for really specific things. I have time in my calendar where I study. I have time, study the word and study as a leader. I have time where I study stuff about marriage, and that'll help me serve marriages better and counsel better. And time to read and learn stuff that'll help me be a better husband. Also schedule breaks. Like, Jason, get up, walk around. Jason, get up and go get something to eat or go get something to drink. And I think for me, scheduling some solitude, some quiet time, getting better with that, and not just listen, making sure I'm listening to something because I'm trying to learn, I'm trying to grow, and all that. Sometimes the learning and growth is just from being still and silent before God. So that's definitely a discipline I can continue to get better at.
Let me ask you something, Pastor Jay, because
Yeah.
I know for a while I had a misconception on that term that you use, solitude versus isolation, right? Because if a person comes across the verse, like a person who seeks isolation, rages against all wise judgment. So help us understand, the difference between solitude and isolation. Because some people might think that they're both the same thing, but the way you use it sounds different.
Yeah, I think it's Matthew 15, where where Peter walks on water. There's a bunch of stuff that happens around that story, and I need to look just to make sure I'm in the right chapter. Forgive me, I'm tired, but there's something that Jesus does is really important. You see this time and time again throughout the Gospels that Jesus went away on a mountainside to pray. And in my isolation in my mind is when we avoid human contact for the sake of avoiding the things that come along with it, right? And solitude is when we avoid human contact for the sake of intimacy with God.
Go ahead.
Is that maybe? Yeah, I hope that makes sense. So yeah, isolation is when we avoid human contact because we don't want the negativity that may come along with that. Solitude is when we avoid human contact for the sake of greater intimacy with God, especially for a specific period or to hear from God in a specific way. And I just think so it's important to practice the healthy one, right? I always believe when we do things, it should be about what we're moving towards and not necessarily what we're moving from. And if when we think about isolation, or if here's my question: if if you're not kicking it with people and you're not hanging with people, that's fine. The question I'd ask is why. Like, what's the intention? What are we looking to get from it? How is it affecting us? And I think that we've got to be intentional about that.
Right. Good explanation, bro. I think that's going to help a lot of people with understanding the difference between those two. So that way you don't get them intertwined or use them interchangeably because they aren't synonymous. They mean two different things. So yeah. I appreciate you breaking that down for us.
That's you, man.
All right. So we're going to move forward to our next activity, which is announcements. So I got two great announcements for you before we move into our next segment. So number one, for all of our folks who ever been to Vacation Bible School, you might have been 3, you ain't know what was going on. You just know mom and dad told you hop in the car and y'all showed up at church all week. And it wasn't for revival, but it was to get into the word in an intimate way. You had a lesson that was already planned out for you, your age group, and it was broken out. Well, we're doing this for the entire family. So I want you guys to tune in for FX Unleashed. And a deadline that you need to keep in mind is going to be June 13th. So make sure you mark that in your calendar. That's the deadline to register. You have the information on your screen right now. You can do it by way of the website, or you can do it by way of text, which is FX Unleashed to 51555. So you don't want to miss out. There is a registration cost. It's $25 per family, but you get a great gift box of activities and some stuff, tools that you can actually use as you follow the week's course out. So make sure you keep it locked and you register for you and your family for the FX Unleashed Virtual Bible School. So keep it tuned in. And the second thing that I want to share with you guys, this coming weekend, what happens on our first Sundays of the month? For all our newbies, on each first Sunday of the month, we have our lobby experience. And that follows our service where we connect, we chat, we catch up with one another, we just share life with each other, just wanting to know what's happening behind the scenes. I know we spend time talking through the service, but this is a time where you actually get to log on. You get to see some faces that you know, maybe even some that you don't know, and you get a chance to chop it up with your fellow folks here at ZCW. So make sure that you tune in. We'll drop the link in the chat so that way you can watch us or tune into our Zoom. You don't have to talk. You can just show up and just hang out with us. We love to see you. So make sure that you tune in this coming Sunday for our lobby experience. So with that being said, we're going to move into our second segment. We got another great clip for you guys to check out. So keep it tuned. We'll be back.
Eric, what do you think of some of the misconceptions people have in general about raising children?
About raising children, well, I think about family in general, marriage and raising children. I think that many times people jump into that dynamic. I'm going to get married. I'm going to have a kid, because sometimes I feel like that's going to be something that fills a void that benefits self. But the twist is you have to be completely selfless to truly enjoy the fruit that's going to come out of that relationship. It requires a level of selflessness that I don't think people really see in TV or see in society, and so we underestimate it. We have couples that come in and they want to get married. They don't get premarital counseling. We think we just have a baby and that's it, and we don't put the extra work in. So I think it's underestimated how much work you put in, but it's also underestimated the reward that you'll get in that type of investment.
Oh, awesome. Great work.
All right. That was another great question from our conversation segment from this past Sunday's experience. So we were trying to understand the misconceptions that come along with having a family. And I think we all have these pictures from the Cosby Show, the Family Matters, to whatever you grew up watching. There's always like this picture that you have in mind of what a family looks like. And then you have your own, right? So for you, Pastor Jay, what's been a misconception about family that you now have a different view on? So you might have saw family as being this for a season, and then you got into it and you're like, yeah, they were off about that part.
How much time we got? Oh, man. Can I tell you, family, I've said this before. I love God's word. I love, anybody who knows me knows I love theology. I love doctrine. I love all that stuff. Like I spend a lot of time really trying to understand God through his truth, right? Through his word. And it's really important to me. And of all my experiences of school, of ministry and all that, the two greatest theological lessons I've had have been marriage and parenthood, right? So I had a lot of misconceptions going in. I'll say a misconception I had, and I think this probably fell away at a certain point, but it's definitely a misconception that I had at one point in my life, was that marriage and parenting was about your happiness. Um, that it was about, am I happy? Am I happy all the time? Is everything, does it always serve me? Does it always go my way? Does it always work the way that I want it to? Um, it's not. marriage,
Tell the
marriage,
truth.
marriage, nor parenting, and a family and family in general are not. It's not about us, right? It's about a commitment to a collective.
Facts.
Um, and one of the great learnings in my life, and it's something, and y'all hear me clear. I'm still trying to live this out. I don't have this licked. Um, is really trying to live out like, marriage ain't here to make you happy, is here to make you holy. And parenting isn't about, it's, even though I get so much joy from it, man, I can't even describe it, but it's really about trying to help this little kid, trying to help this little boy become whoever God created him to be. Like, he's steward, like, how do I steward him? Because then I give him back. That's why we do baby dedications. Because ultimately God sent the child into the earth, whether we receive the child through natural means or some other means, right? But ultimately, we give the child back to God, because ultimately, what we want is for God to get a hold of the child's life, and we want to set the stage for that to happen. So the child can be the best whatever he or she is supposed to be, and that's been a huge realization. Like, it's not about whether or not he embarrasses me. You
He
know,
will.
he will. I'm already preparing myself, because I know I have a bad temper. I'm already ready, right? But that has been such a huge realization for me, that marriage is the great marriage. I mean, family, I'll say, is a great example of, it's not about me. And the second thing I'll say, a misconception I think a lot of people had. I don't know if I had this, but I see it a lot. Is that family is about loyalty more than it is blood.
Mm.
Um, I'm fortunate, man. I have a great family, but I have both family I chose and family I was born into. Right? There are people, and some of y'all are watching. Like, I got blood family, and I have family that I chose, and the family that I chose, I part of what makes us family is loyalty. Like, being there for one another. So that, I think, just that, I don't know. I could give you a more practical thing, but that was just kind of a general revelation that I had, about family. What about you, man?
Sure. For me, I derived a lot of mine from TV because I was a latchkey kid, and I'm a kid from a broken home, meaning my parents were divorced from a young age going on. So um, a lot of my
Latchkey kids, stand up.
right latchkey, where y'all at? You know, you had the one around the neck, it was hanging down. Yeah, I ain't gonna go there. Y'all don't know about that. But just watching TV kind of created a lot of different narratives in my mind of what a family looks like. Of course, you hear terms like happy wife, happy life, this person will complete you, so on and so forth. So for me going in, I had a lot of conceptions of, okay, this is what I need to do in order to create the perfect nuclear family dynamic of, the 2.5 kids. I don't know how you have a point 0.5, but 2.5 kids and the dog and all of that, white picket fence. So for me, it was learning to die to self, right? Like, I think going in, I understood what it meant to be a husband, like to be the priest, provider, protector for your home. But at the same time, what really became real to me was living out the verse of loving your wife or loving your spouse as Christ loved the church. And that's hard because you never realize how difficult sometimes the church can be until you have to be Christ in situations. So the
Hmm.
things that I tell my wife, I was like, I had to learn how to take a punch. not physically, because we're not about the abusive life, but how to take a punch and not always be defensive of, I need to say this so that you understand my part. Sometimes it's just sitting back and listening. And sometimes it's being humble enough to say, you know what, you're right there. And just working through those situations, even when you didn't see the punch coming, or if you saw the punch coming, just being able to take it and just temper yourself and be able to have some resolve to work through things in love. So for me, one of the biggest misconceptions that I had to debunk was just understanding that, you know, it is incumbent on the husband to really manage well and to reflect Christ in every interaction that he had. And that's something that I don't think TV ever showed me from a husband standpoint on how to love your family as Christ loved the church.
Right. And can I tag something to that, bro?
Go right ahead.
We so often and I'm blessed that I work with a lot of couples. You know, I counsel and serve a lot of couples, and this comes up a lot. And especially when you hear this quote of this, well, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. And we don't finish it, because you got to remember what Christ did for the church and gave himself up for it. Mm-hmm. Right. And thinking about the implications of what that means as a husband. And Christina will tell you, Christina's really fond of saying, like, yeah, I'm the only one in the relationship that's called to die. Like, that's not her call, that's mine.
Go ahead.
You're called to die, not me, right? But in all seriousness, I see a lot of men who want to lead but don't want to die.
Woo. Say that again.
If you that's cool, you want to lead, but if you want to lead, then you need to die first. Because if you're going, it's the quintessential issue we have. We want the crown without the cup, right? And we want the crown of, I'm the man and I'm the provider and you want the big piece of chicken, you want the big chair that don't nobody else sit in. And I'm sorry, fellas, I don't mean to beat y'all up before Father's Day, because I'm talking to me too. But we want the crown, but we don't want the cup of suffering. And when I say suffer, I mean laying our lives down in furtherance of the best interests of our spouses, in furtherance of the best interests of our family, of our children. And it's me. So watch this. So because we want the crown and not the cup, whenever the crown isn't present, right? Whenever we don't feel the crown present, it doesn't feel like it's fitting on our head just right, then, oh, nah, something must be wrong with this. I must have made the wrong decision. I married the wrong person, whatever it may be. And we look for the exit door. And it's like, no, the crown doesn't fit right because we haven't continued to do what is necessary. And I mean, for both of us, right? We haven't done what is necessary for it to fit well. And I'm not saying, listen, I'm not trying to, to throw rocks at anybody's situation, because we all been there. It's hard, but there's a call to it. And ultimately, there's so much more at stake, man. Like, there's legacy at stake. There's our families are at stake. And I'll say it, email me later. I think one of the greatest dangers in our society is the destabilization of Black families because fathers ain't present. Now, here's what I will say. The myth that Black men can't be fathers, that's a lie from the pit of hell, because everywhere I look, all my friends are great fathers. All my friends are killing. Like, whether it's an ideal situation and you married to the mother of your children, or whether we all got kids that we pulling from everywhere. I don't care what it is. I see Black men showing up in ways I salute. I can't wait for Father's Day, because every Father's Day I talk about this, because I love seeing the myth be defied. And the reason that's important is because, like, y'all, when we refuse to die, when we refuse to lay our lives down in service of our families, when we just give up and roll because it's hard, and I'm not beating up on anybody, but when we give up and roll because it's hard, we destabilize generations of the family coming after us. And we got to think about the bigger picture, that generations from now, 100 years from now, what will the legacy of the family be? And you can adjust the legacy of your great grandkids because you stayed. Move
That
on.
was the spirit. That was the spirit of God right there, man. That part.
Yeah.
Make sure you parse that out. We're gonna need that as something to come back to with a post on our social
come
media.
back to
That was good. All right, family. We're gonna move on. Right now, we're gonna take a praise break. Literally, we're gonna have praise and worship deliver a great song from this past Sunday's experience. I Belong. So keep it locked. We'll be right back.
Kids.
Salika, all of us probably had this experience growing up when our parents tell us to do something and we had the boldness, the nerve to say why.
I've been captured by a love I can't explain. And now you have me, and I'm forever changed. I've abandoned everything I've ever known. Now I surrender. My life is not my own. I belong to you. I belong to you. I belong to you. I belong only to you. Somebody help me say yeah.
I've been captured by a love I can't explain.
And now you have me.
Now you have me.
And I'm forever changed.
And I'm forever changed. I've abandoned everything I've ever known.
Anybody surrender?
Now I surrender.
My life is not my own.
My life is not my own.
You say.
I belong to you.
Go ahead and tell God from the depths of your
I
heart.
belong to you.
I'm yours, God.
I belong to you.
I belong. I belong to you. My heart, my soul, my mind is yours. I give myself away. I give myself away. I'm yours. I belong. Wherever you are right now, if you belong to God, as a sign of surrender, lift your hands.
Life is not my own. To you I belong. I give myself to you. My life is not my own. To you I belong. I give myself to you.
Everybody, my life is not my own.
My life is not my own. To you, God. To you I belong. I give myself away to you. My life is not my own. To you, I belong. I give myself away to you.
Say I belong.
What up? What up? What up?
Same babies. Oh,
They did a phenomenal job, man. Like we got to get the kids on. So parents, just know we love to spotlight your kids. We got to get the kids on. I'm sure they enjoy service, but we got to find a way to get the kids on because y'all are watching, y'all are learning just like we are. So it would be good to get y'all's perspective on here too.
And watch this. So speaking of legacy, the young man who sang that last line, his name is Sage. And his dad and I went to high school together. We sang together in high school.
Come on.
And it's so dope to see, some of what someone was on dad and his shout out to Terrence and Eve, who are just amazing folks. The Ferguson family, love y'all. And just what God's done in them, just kind of seeing that some is dripping on the junior, man. That's so dope. I love it. And I love seeing LaShawn's daughter and Stacy's daughter. Like, I think everyone up there, all the kids up there, and then Randy's son, they're all children of our team. And I think that's so fly that, we're seeing this thing kind of pass on to the next generation. So that's exciting, man. I'm sorry. Go ahead, bro.
No worries, man. No worries. I enjoyed that song. That's why, spoiler, I had to sneak that song back in because it was special. Like just to see the kids worshiping along with the adults, and the kids were into it, if not more than the adults there. But it was a phenomenal moment. Yeah. So we'll go ahead and move forward. We're not going to belabor the point. One of the things that we want to do is we want to delve into our third segment. So for y'all who are watching, we got through the first two. Keep it locked because we got another segment. We're going to roll another clip on this past Sunday service. So keep it locked and we'll be back to discuss soon. See y'all after.
Salika, all of us probably had this experience growing up when our parents tell us to do something and we had the boldness, the nerve to say why. And you know what they're going to say, right? Because I told you so. Yeah, because I said so. So do you agree with that? Do you think parents should have a better answer for that question?
I do. I do not agree with that.
Okay.
I don't understand at what point asking why became offensive to people. Like, how can you expect for your kids to grow up and be confident and be able to speak up for themselves and advocate for themselves in a world if in their own household they can't even ask why? And sometimes I understand the disrespectful why I got to do this, but I think in most cases you can gracefully answer why, and they're genuinely asking, why do I need to do this? And that once you address it, you no longer have to circle back to it. I don't think it's nothing offensive to me about my kids asking me why something needs to happen. Now, if you're in a situation where you need this to happen right now, like just do it because I said so, we'll talk about it later. Like, I understand those situations, but just off the break, it's just because I said so. Like, I just don't understand how do you want them to function beyond your house when you have that setting, that kind of communication happening inside your house.
I think just a lot of parents are just tired. We ain't got time, ain't got the energy to answer it.
Yeah.
Just do what I said.
But that's not your child's fault.
Woo!
Yeah.
My.
Woo! Why ask why? Why ask why? Why ask why? Why? Shout out to my sister Salika Wood. My main man, DeMont Wood, and also that baby girl Sage just graduated from high school, heading off to college. Time flies.
Good
God Almighty. So listen, Pastor Shaman, because I'm sure this happens in your house with you and Naj. How do you handle when your kids say why in response to something you ask them to do?
Ooh. I will say I gotta give a shout out to Salika because she answered it well. I will say the way she answered it is the parent that I evolved into. The parent that I was when I first heard it, it definitely rubbed me the wrong way because it was like, because I told you to do it. But at the same time, I had to start questioning myself, like, okay, why am I doing this? And it was because I was modeling out what I saw modeled before me. And one of the things that I wanted my kids to understand is I wanted them to be able to think, comprehend, and have critical thinking for themselves. Mm-hmm. And if I continually shut them down when they get into situations where they need to use those critical thinking skills, they won't have them because they haven't been put to the test to learn it. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll give partial answers. So when the why question now comes up, I'll start to say, okay, how can we help you understand this better? What are some resources that you can tap into? Like, do you need Google? Do you need a book? So I try to leave breadcrumbs for them when that why question comes up. But initially it was like, because I told you to do it. Like, you need to go ahead and take care of it. But I would say now it's definitely, you know, more of a teaching atmosphere is the approach that we both have, both Naj and I, just wanting them to have their own voice, wanting them to know that we value what they say, and just encouraging them like, hey, if something seems amiss, like, even if it's not us, it's a teacher, let's make sure we do it respectfully, right? Like, you can say why, and it could be in a tone where somebody will be like, wait, you're a child. But if you are able to do it in a humble way, I think that'll go a long way for you as a kid to be able to get some of the questions answered that you want to better understand. So that's the parent that I've evolved into. It definitely wasn't the one that I started out as, that's for sure.
That's such a blessing, man. I appreciate hearing that from you, man, that you may have seen it one way or approached it one way at a certain point in your journey. And as you've evolved and as you've grown, and I would say probably as you've observed your children too, right? That you've grown into a sort of a different version of yourself that can handle that, you know, that can handle those kinds of things better. I haven't reached the why phase yet, but I know it's coming.
Oh man.
And I would just say my prayer is that I can show up as the more evolved me, and not to, you know, think you are not going to do something when I tell you to do something. I mean, you move when I say move. I carried you in my body for 9 months. You roll your eyes at me, I'll roll that little head of yours down on the floor. You don't know who you're fooling with. I'll beat you until you can't grow anymore. You heard an old Bill Cosby album, you know exactly what that is. I really hope I show up as the more evolved one, because I know it's coming. And why didn't work on me? I wasn't that child. Like, you can just tell me because I said so didn't work for me. That I wasn't that kind of kid. You couldn't tell me because I said so. That ain't work. You had to explain it to me cerebrally, like make it make sense. So I would imagine, because God is funny, right, that my child would probably be the same way. And children are a little different these days, but ultimately, you know, kids are people. They're just small people. They're small people. And Salika said something that's really, I think Salika said it during the segment, that how am I going to expect you to function outside of my house if you can't think critically? You know, how do I, like, if you don't have the ability to think and process information and make decisions and that kind of thing, how am I going to expect you to function outside the house? So yeah, I pray for me.
We got your back. We got your back. So what we'll do is I got a couple of questions, and we can just tag team off of these questions.
Okay.
Some that were very interesting that I wanted to kind of key in on. Some we can definitely take from the audience. So if y'all got questions, make sure to drop those here. But I'm gonna just shoot a couple to Pastor Jay, and I'll try to tackle them as best as I can.
Drop your questions
as we go through. What was that?
No, I was saying, drop your questions in the chat, people. You got questions, drop them in the chat.
All right. So the first one I want to pose to you is, how important is it for you to have a village? And then tell me, you know, one or two things that you appreciate about your village.
Woo! Oh man, the village is absolutely essential. For so many reasons, and let me name a few. One, I don't know everything, right? I'm not good at everything. I can't provide everything. And the beauty of a village is that the village can provide in some ways what I can't, like, you know, or provide certain things and insight or whatever it is, wisdom at even a higher level than I may have it in some areas. And I'm thankful for a village that's like that. You know, also I can't be everywhere at the same time. And I want my village to know, like when they see, when people see my son, I want my village to know if you see him and he's behaving in a manner that is not commensurate with who you know him to be, feel free to check him. Just call me and tell me you did it so I can reinforce it when he gets home. But nah, man, we not playing them games out here in these streets. I think we've gotten away from the collective. Um, as we've gotten more isolated, right? As we've moved from, moved and forgive me, y'all. No shot at anybody. I'm a kid from the suburbs, but the flight out to the suburbs from the city, where we lived in less densely populated areas. Now you're over there, you're over there, you're over there, you're over there, and we all got our space. But also, we don't connect and communicate the same way that we used to always. And along the way, I think one of the things we lost is that collective parenting, where Miss So and So of the block could whoop you behind if you was acting a fool, right? And again, I want to be clear. I'm not just saying any old body can put their hands on your child, because I wish you would touch mine. But like, there's got to be a village. There's got to be a collective. It's like wraparound services. You know what I'm saying? And I want to thank God for my village, man. My village is brilliant. My village is godly. My village is ambitious. I would name names, but I'm gonna get in trouble. Um, from everyone to his grandparents and great grandparents. My son's grandparents, man, have been incredible. My family, my cousins, my aunts, my uncles, some of whom that I'm just really getting to know, have been incredible. My Christina's family have been incredible. This church has been incredible, like just showing up for us. Um, he has a mate. My son has incredible godparents that if something were to happen to us, I have every confidence would raise him in the best way possible, right? Like I can't put a price on that. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna make sure he goes to the best schools. He has all the resources. I'll do daddy's gonna make sure he does everything he can. And I'm speaking specifically as a parent, right? I just think that's so important. Yeah, shout out to the village.
All right, all right. So for me, I would say the village is uber important. Like you need couples, families, even singles that you can lean on, because sometimes life just happens. Like, God forbid something happened to myself. Like, my kids aren't at the age where they can, drive. So they need to be with somebody else so that my wife can attend to me. Like if I get sick or if I need to have surgery, God forbid, keep me safe. But if those things happen, like you need that village of people who can help watch the kids, help take care of meals, help to step in to correct, like Pastor Jason said. Sometimes it might be a spank, sometimes it might be like, let's sit down and talk through this decision that you just made. Like that wasn't the best one. And here's why. Because I might have been down that street 5 times, and I'm gonna tell you, all 5 just ended in failure. So sometimes kids need to hear it, because I think voices matter. Like not the, crazy voices that you hear, but just the voice of someone else different than a parent. Because when a parent tells you something, it's like, oh yeah, you're just mom and dad. But if someone else with wisdom, someone else that they see might have some of those characteristics that they want to have later in life, they're going to be more open to hearing it. And sometimes you need that other village person to be able to step in and say, hey, I just want to help you understand. This is why your mom and dad is saying it. Like they're not saying it to restrict you. They're not saying it because they want to take away your fun and your joy. They want you to live a life, but at the same time, they want you to be safe. They want you to have a future. And sometimes you might forfeit your future with one of those decisions that you're thinking about making.
Yeah, that's good, man. That's good. So good. What else we got, man? What else we got?
Sure thing. So the next question we got: how do you safeguard your marriage? Because that was one of the. I'm not going to spoil it for me, but that was something tricky to navigate. So how do you?
Go, please, go, man, go.
Yeah. So I will say to answer that question, I flat out failed that test early on, because. And when you have your child, the one thing that you want is to make sure that they have the love, the care, the nurturing that they need. And I think that came at an expense to our marriage and our love for one another. And so for me, I know that there were seasons where I needed to be there for Naj just as much as I was there for Bliss. And I don't think I carved out appropriate time separately for us to make sure that we were on the same page as parents, and not only just as parents, but as lovers, just to let her know that I still care about you, that I still love you. I'm sure that you're going through a lot because, you know, having kids is traumatic. Like it just shakes up whatever normal you had in life, no matter what, because you now have this little person who depends solely on you for living, eating, getting from place to place, and just being safe. So I would say the things that I do now to safeguard is carving out that time where we do check-ins. And that was something that Pastor E hit on. I wish we had enough time to go into that clip, but he hit on just having those check-ins versus a date night. You don't necessarily need to go out to do a date night to do a check-in. You can just carve out time, 15 minutes, 10 minutes. Like, how are you? Like between 1 to 5, you know, 5 being best, 1 worst. How can we get you to that next level? How can I help you be your best self and move you to that next number that you need to get to? So I will say that to safeguard it, you got to carve out that time where you're checking in, not just, you know, date night, lovey-dovey, but really understanding from an intimacy standpoint how your spouse is doing. What about you, Pastor Jay?
Yeah, you preached it all, bro. I don't know if there's anything left. Yeah, yes and amen to everything you said, man. One thing that I'm learning, parenting, especially when a child is small, it's almost like for a season you just gotta hang on for dear life. You
are doing that.
You just gotta hang on, like did we make it through the day? Kids still alive? Okay, cool. Let's get back to it tomorrow. And it's hard, but I think generally a couple of things, and you mentioned so many of them, man. I think understanding the difference between fun and connection. You know, like there's stuff we do that's fun, but I don't know if it necessarily helps us connect.
Right.
As husband and wife, and like just making sure that you're having conversations. Fellas, look at me. You have to talk to your wife. I know you don't always feel like it, right? But you got to talk to your wife, man. Here's why. Can I illustrate this a little? Let me put a finer point on this. Think about the story of Adam and Eve, right? What we saw there was a marital communication gap, right? That if Adam had communicated with more clarity or communicated in a more timely fashion or stepped in when necessary, right, then Eve wouldn't have made the mistakes that she did. And then and Adam went along with it, right, when he had the correct information. And what happens inevitably, there's a voice that a husband and wife have in one another's lives that cannot be duplicated, cannot be replicated, or should not, right? And whenever the husband isn't speaking to the wife and the wife isn't speaking to the husband, whenever that communication isn't happening, it creates a void. And inevitably, we all fill that void with our own thoughts, our own insecurities, our own misgivings, our own misinformation, our own stuff. And if we are not careful, then we allow our spouse to spiral off into a mental and emotional space based on inaccurate information. But then you can't be mad at them because we didn't provide the correct information. So by way of how you don't, how am I doing? Here's how I'm feeling. Here's what I want. Here's where I see it's going. Because when we don't provide that information, then our spouses are left to assume, right? And we all know when you assume, you make a, whatever, right? So it's the importance of communicating. So I definitely want to ditto that importance of communication, man, in terms of way of safeguarding the marriage. And, as Pastor Keith Andre Battle once said, regular sex protects in a marriage. Glory
All
to
right.
God.
All right. All right. I'm going to give you a statement. If my child one day does blank, I'll feel blessed as a parent. I'm going to repeat it. If my child one day does blank, I'll feel blessed as a parent.
If my child scores 38 points in a game, then because his dad's high is 37. No, I'm just playing. Like if my child, so right now I have one child, and if one day, I can see him grow and leave an impact on the world in a way that is commensurate with his own unique wiring, I'll feel blessed as a parent because I will believe I've done my job in helping to draw out whatever God put in me. Pastor Shamar?
That's a good one. I had a range of thoughts. I'm going to try to pick one. The one that I wanted to go with is I wanted to see them leave the same legacy that I'm trying to create for them. Like one thing that I tell Bliss now, because I don't think Jace gets it yet contextually, is like, I want to leave a great name for you. And she's like, what does that mean? And I'm just like, one of the things that I want you to understand is that when your name comes up, there's a thought, there's a position that people have. And I want when people hear that name, they're comfortable, they're confident, they trust in who's coming after that name. So for me, I want them to be able to continue that same legacy of having a respectable name, no matter where they are, no matter what they're doing in this world, because no matter what, your name is going to precede you wherever you go. Please know, folks are going to look you up on social media. They're going to look up what your mom and them did. So for me, I really want them to understand having a great name and leaving that legacy for generations to come.
I always said, and this is even before I had a child, I always said I wanted the fact that you're my child to make life easier for you.
That part.
Like not just financially, daddy's trying to take care of that. Mommy, we're trying to take care of that. But you're Jason and Christina's son. Cool.
That part.
That it says not just that it gets you a hookup. It's that not just that, because that matters too, y'all. Don't listen. Look all around, check all your Fortune 500 companies, check all the legacy companies that have existed in this country for years and years and years. If you think family name and family legacy has nothing to do with it, you got another thing coming.
You've been teaching today, bro.
Straight like that. But yeah, man, you want people to say, because think about it, Pastor Shimon, I said this to you, I think I said it off camera, but I think of the many things I can say about you is that I think your integrity always precedes you. If someone says Pastor Shimon Smalls, integrity is one of those first thoughts, like along with like kindness, and he's tall. You know what I'm saying? And the fact that Bliss and Jace come from your legacy will speak for them and will open doors for them prayerfully, and will create opportunity that they can take advantage of, and that they got to do work and they got to capitalize, right? But that the fact that they are you and Naj are their parents, right?
Facts.
I think for all of us, man, our prayer is that our kids are lifted by where they come from, and that's my prayer.
That's good. Well, we about to bring this plane in for a landing. Any closing thoughts, Pastor Jay? Anything lingering on your heart or mind you want to share with the people before we close?
No, man. I think for all of us, I'm so glad this came up. I'm so glad this came up. I'm so glad this service happened when it did, and I'm so glad the conversation happened when it did. Shout out to Pastor Battle. Shout out to Pastor Eric. Shout out to my sister Salika and my man Miracle Mike, Pastor Mike Rogers. Shout out to
Indeed.
them for such a great conversation that's so loaded. Please go back and watch it. But as we come, as we round the corner of the pandemic, um, I think and I know I've seen this, and maybe many of you have too. It's been hard on families, you know, and I've seen couples get divorced coming out of this thing. It's like, man, we've been stuck in the house all year. I just realized I don't like you. You know what I'm saying? Like I've seen
Yes.
the toll that this has taken on our families, and I just want to encourage all of us, y'all. Like the family is the fiber, it's the fabric of our society, of our culture, um, and God, thank shout out to Pastor Eric Kellum for this one. God is so committed to family that that in the beginning, that He instituted the first family, the Godhead, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, right? That function sort of in the same way as a family, right? Um, but also this understanding that we've all got to do work to keep our families healthy and intact, and it doesn't happen by osmosis. You know,
Mhm.
um, for those of us who come, when you come from a great family, talk to your parents, talk to your grandparents. My wife's grandparents are celebrate. They've been married for like 60 plus years,
Mm.
right?
It's a
And I
blessing.
can't imagine, I can't imagine being 60 years old, not much less being married for 60 years, right? And they still like each other. It's crazy. Shout out to Pastor and co-pastor Cannon, right? But you don't get that without work. And I think for all of us, it's a great reminder that there's a level of intention. Like we're intentional about all the stuff that matters to us. We're intentional about our careers. We're intentional about our business. Hopefully, we're intentional about our money. We're intentional about our ministries, about our faith, about all this other stuff, right? We're intentional about our health and getting our bodies in shape. You're intentional about, what car you drive, and you're intentional about that and which restaurant you go to. Let's be intentional about the health of our families.
It's
You
really
know,
good.
that's that same level of intention and effort and focus that we put into everything else. Let's put that same level of attention and focus into the thing that God has given us that will no doubt outlive us. And I'm thankful that we get to have this conversation. And I'm thankful for everybody who got a chance to be a part of it. So yeah, I'll stop there.
All right, all right. As we close out, I want to do a quick shout out. We got some gems in our congregation, and it would be remiss if we didn't shout out two special young ladies who do something phenomenal. And I think this was birthed out of the pandemic, but I want to shout out the SK Bible Girls. There we go. Soraya and Candace have their own YouTube channel where they break down God's word for children right at their age level. So if your
Love
kids
it.
need some good content from some young ladies who are in the know about the Bible and just breaking down stories, definitely check them out on YouTube. You don't want to miss it. And last but not least, we got to shout out Candace, who just celebrated a birthday. If I'm
Happy
not mistaken, she
birthday.
just
Happy
turned
birthday, Candace.
11. So happy birthday,
11.
Candace. Yeah, yeah. So we just want to shout y'all out. Make sure y'all subscribe to their channel, tune in. But with that being said, we thank y'all for joining us on today. Like Pastor Jay said, this was a great conversation. Hopefully, y'all continue this with your village, with your friends, with everybody that you come into contact with. So, with that being said, I will pray us out and we will end this session. So, with that being said, Dad, we thank you for this day. We thank you for your loving kindness, for showing us what family looks like through the Godhead. We thank you for you being a great father, for you being a great husband, for you being a great leader, but also showing us how to serve one another through love, through diligence, but more importantly, through sacrifice. So I pray that we would be able to see you clearer in the things that we say and do in our own family unit. Let us lay down our lives for one another. Let us serve with love, with boldness, with cheerfulness like never before. But honestly, God, help us to see you in the way that we operate as a family unit. We thank you for our time today. We honor you and we bless you. It's in your son Jesus' name we pray and give thanks. Amen and amen. All right, y'all. We'll catch y'all soon.